Determine the degree, the sign of the leading coefficient, and the y-intercept of y equals negative x plus 3 times x minus 6 times x minus 4. Okay, so let's start by determining the degree. Remember, we can determine the degree by summing the degrees of all the factors. So the negative 1 factor out front has a degree of 0. Then the x plus 3 has a degree of 1. X minus 6 also has a degree of 1. And x minus 4 also has a degree of 1, because we can imagine that implied exponent of 1 on all the x's. Okay, so this sums to 3. So our degree is 3, which means this polynomial is cubic. Next, we'll look at the sign of the leading coefficient. So we can determine the sign of the leading coefficient by multiplying all the signs of all the leading coefficients of all the factors. So the first factor, negative 1, has a negative leading coefficient. The next factor, x plus 3, has a leading coefficient of positive 1, and so do the rest of the factors. So we have a negative times 3 positives, which leaves us with a negative. Okay, now finally, we'll move on to the y-intercept. So we can determine the y-intercept by setting all of the x's to 0, which basically means we'll end up multiplying all the constant terms of all the factors, including the negative 1 out front. So we'll have negative 0 plus 3 times 0 minus 6 times 0 minus 4. This is going to be equal to negative 3 times negative 6 times negative 4. The product is going to be negative since we have an odd number of negative signs. We have 3 negatives, so 2 negatives will cancel to be positive, and then the last negative will make sure that the product is negative. And 3 times 6 times 4 is equal to, well, 6 times 4 is 24. That times 3 gives us 72. So the y-intercept will be at y equals negative 72. Okay, so the degree is 3, the sign of the leading coefficient is negative, and the y-intercept is at y equals negative 72.